So today we're going to be exploring a strategy masterclass related to something that we call the strategy in a page. And the strategy in a page is the absolute tip of an organization's strategy, enabling the team to align behind what does success look like, what does winning look like, and how does that cascade down through the organization. So to start with, I want you to imagine that as a business leader, you call your top 10 executives into the boardroom. You give each of those members of the team a piece of paper, and you ask them to write down, without speaking to each other, the top 3 priorities or the top 3 measures of success for your organization today. They all sit down, they all write it down on their piece of paper, they turn it over, and they leave the room. Then together, you and I take this piece of paper, we turn them back over, we line them all up on a long table, and we assess them one by one. How many of those pieces of paper do you think will have the same metrics, in the same order, with the same values? Well, we do this for real. So generally we see that only around 20 to 30% of organizations actually have this clear. And even when it is clear, there are still significant variances between individuals within the organization. And if the individuals within an organization don't have this clear, then how can the collective execute to a high performing level? So to overcome this, we're going to begin about an element that we call the level of ambition that feeds into the strategy in a page. So let's take a look at this first slide. What is the level of ambition? Well, the level of ambition is the translation in measurable values, so KPIs or measured success, there are different terminologies for it, but measurable values that transform the long-term vision and mission into something that we can actually track. Because the vision and mission are words, and words are very interpretable. But KPIs, we can track them. They're numbers. We can measure against something. So how do we define them? We identify the key measurable metrics and associated goals, which will be sufficient to describe the moment when the vision and mission will be achieved. So if we want to be the largest player in the UK market, or we want to have the largest total revenue in the Canadian market, what does that actually look like? Where are we today and where do we want to be? What does success mean? So why is this important for an organization? Well, as we were just saying before, words are interpretable, but numbers are not. And organizations need to be fully aligned on what the destination actually looks like. So to move forward from here, we're going to review a fairly famous case study related to the Posta Italiana, so the Italian post office. And this is a real life example, shortened, but a real life example of the importance, criticality, and impact of implementing KPIs. So the context is that the Posta Italiana, as the Italian postal service, and this is a number of years ago now, they were in a situation where they had very little trust from customers in domestic delivery. There were 30-minute plus waiting times in most post offices. Sometimes it was significantly above this. And they had productivity amongst the lowest in the world within their industry. At the time, a new CEO came into the organization, and he implemented a very clear understanding for the team members in the organization of their vision and how they would track it, how they would measure it, their level of ambition, that KPI. So the vision at the time was to deliver a service to be proud of. And he said, based upon this, I want to track one metric, one component of our level of ambition. The dimension that he built this around was the customer. He put the customer at the heart and soul of it. And he said that their measure of success, their KPI, was the time it took to serve a customer during the peak hours of operations. And then, as a forcing device, they defined where are we today and where do we want to be. So behind this KPI of time to serve a customer during peak time, they said today we're at 30 minutes. This is our current performance. But what does success look like? Where do we want to be over the period of our strategy? We want to get this to 10 minutes. 10 minutes or less. We need to shave 20 minutes off the time to serve a customer during peak hours. So what happened? Well, ultimately, the entire organization aligned towards a common, and that's the critical point here, common goal. So the people that worked within the post office, the postmen and women, realized that by delivering packages correctly, that fewer people would actually need to go to the post office. So it would reduce queuing times. The office workers, those that were in each of the particular areas of the organization of the country, could increase the speed of their service by being properly trained and also using adequate technology. Executives higher up within the organization evaluated any investment by looking at how much would it reduce queues at post offices? What impact would it have on our level of ambition, on that KPI we're tracking? And they also involved suppliers and stakeholders. They went out and engaged externals, and they encouraged them and motivated them to suggest improvements that would improve the relationship, would improve the effectiveness of suppliers and stakeholders, and ultimately would help the Posta Italiana to achieve their goal. So what were the results? Well, the results were that after 24 months, after 2 years, the average queuing time decreased to less than 5 minutes, significantly exceeding its target. And as a result of this, they significantly increased profitability. Now, this is one case study, but within this case study, we can see or begin to see the power of transforming vision and mission, which is very interpretable, into something which is quantifiable, something which is trackable, something which is easily understood and inherited by the organization and can then be executed upon. Now, the danger sometimes when we build KPIs, when we build a way of tracking and measuring vision and mission for an organization, is that it can become very, very financially focused. Organizations can think, how do I make more money? How do I save money? And how do I showcase this success, hopefully? The danger of that is that we become too outcome focused and not enough focused on the process, not enough focused on all of the elements that ultimately contribute to that overriding financial goal. And that's why within the strategy and action setup, we leverage another best practice to support in the building of KPIs, to support in the building of that overriding strategy on a page. And this framework, which we've touched upon before and we'll touch upon more in the future, is known as the Balanced Scorecard Framework. The Balanced Scorecard Framework looks at 4 different areas: financial, internal business processes, learning and growth, and customer. So by looking at these 4 different areas, we're able to enable and build a holistic view of the entire business. And the Balanced Scorecard forces you to consider the implications of decision in all areas of the business, not just financial, highlighting how improvements in one area can lead to a deterioration or could lead to deterioration and impact in another. So we build this holistic view. However, in recent years, some have felt that there's a component that's missing from this. And that component is ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So within environmental, social, and governance, often we hear organizations say we need to focus on the ESG strategy, we need to track ESG metrics. And here the opinion that we take and the viewpoint that we look at this from is, why can't we include ESG within the Balanced Scorecard? Why can't we include ESG metrics that we want to track within the wider strategy in a page? So that's the theory, some of the terminology and the frameworks that sit behind it. To finish with, let's look at the final output, which is the strategy in a page. So as a quick recap, the elements that go into this are letter from the future results, which are an element that we incorporate specifically within SIA. Examples of vision and mission statements, so best practices. And then we have some of the elements we discussed today. So examples of the measures of success within an organization, that compendium, that library of KPIs from across the Balanced Scorecard and ESG. We can use trends and foresights, and we can also use examples of the vision and mission statement from within our organization to align yourself behind the wider strategy. Ultimately, these are all components that we can use to build into our strategy in a page. So we're now here inside of the strategy and action platform to take a look at one of the critical outputs and end products of the process, which is the strategy in a page. The strategy in a page defines the level of ambition for an organization by taking the vision, as we can see here, which is the inspirational future state of the organization. It's where we ultimately want to go. It's what we ultimately want to go and achieve. At the bottom of the strategy in a page, we can see the mission. This is our reason for being, our raison d'etre. This is why we exist as an organization. And here you can see how this illustrative company called FoodX have transformed their vision and mission into their top quantifiable and trackable KPIs, ranging from revenue to gross margin, EBITDA, through to those related to the percentage of packages recycled, the number of countries they're present in, ESG metrics on greenhouse gas emissions, as well as looking at their people. So Net Promoter Score, for example, of those that they're serving, or absences, a percentage of working hours, and employee Net Promoter Score. So it's a very well-rounded, holistic, and effective list of KPIs, and each of them directly speaks to the vision and mission that they've crafted. And lastly, but critically, what this provides for the organization is a crystal clear understanding of where they are today. In this case, it was 2022. How were they measuring on those metrics at that point? And where do they want to be over the period of their strategy? What do they want to make happen by 2027? And because of that, everything they do from this step forward can be specifically focused on how do we bridge the gap between where we are today and where we want to be. So that was a little bit today about the strategy on a page and about building for an organization their level of ambition and really transforming something which is very interpretable, the words of the vision and mission statement, into something which is very quantifiable, meaningful, and that aligns the team in their measure of success, their KPIs. So I hope you enjoyed this little deep dive into strategy on a page and level of ambition, and look forward to seeing you for the next one. Thank you.